Hello, this is Jamie Magrich. Welcome to Jamie's Craft Table. Today I'm going to do a simple to Avid card. So I'm going to do 3 different cards today using butterfly wishes. We're going to be using this stamp and this stamp. And let's get started. For the first card, it's very simple. We're going to be using card base, which is 5.5 by 8.5, scored and folded at 4 1/4. We're going to be using a piece of blueberry bushel, which is 4 1/4 by 5.5, and another piece of white, which is 4 1/4 by 5.5. First thing we're going to do, we're also going to use blueberry bushel. And we're going to use a Post-it note. I've already done it, but I'll go ahead and show you. We're just going to take our Post-it note and we're going to do a little bit of tearing. We're just going to tear a little bit of this outside edge. I'm going to make it a square. About doesn't really matter. We just want to make sure it's big enough to stamp our 2 sentiments in. I'm not taking very much off. If you have a larger Post-it note, it might be easier. I'm just tearing the tiniest little bit off the edge. One more here. Okay, so we're going to need that. Okay, I'm going to be using, you can use a sponge. I'm going to be using my makeup brush because I like the softer look. Okay, we're going to take the blueberry bushel ink. Take this piece here. And I'm going to stamp my images right in the center here. A little bit more towards this side because we're going to tear some of this side off. So I'm going to ink up my butterfly and I'm going to stamp it. I'm going to ink up my sentiment. I'm going to stamp it below it. Okay. I'm going to take that Post-it note and I'm going to set it over those images. You can see it through it. I'm going to take, whoops. Well, I'll show you with the sponge because it's more easily accessible. Get some ink onto my sponge. Use a scratch paper to wipe a little bit off. I'm going to start on the, and I'm going to very softly, like almost no pressure, I'm going to brush off. Okay, and I want to show you. You see how it leaves little bits of marks? That's why I like this better. Let me show you the difference. You see how soft and smooth that is compared to this? You can use both. They both work well. I just like the softer look of this one. So let's see if we can blend this out a little bit. Maybe I got too much ink on this, I don't know. So that it doesn't look all by itself there. And just Just a little bit more of this down on this side. Oops. Yeah. Alright. We're going to take that off. And that gives us a nice white square. So it looks like we have a layer there, but we don't. Now we're going to take this side of the paper and we're going to tear off about 1/4 of an inch. I'm going to hold the paper with my left hand and tear towards myself with my right. Okay, now I'm going to bring in my other pieces. Bring in my Tombow glue. And I'm going to adhere this blueberry bushel piece to the front of my card. If you'd like to save paper, you could cut something out of the center of this, but as long as you leave an inch or so from this side untouched. Okay. My card must be a smidge too long, so let me trim that off. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. Now I'm going to adhere this to the front of the card. There you go, there's our first card. Oops. Let's move it over just a hair. I'm going to leave just a little bit of a border on this other side. And this is a little bit long as well. So we will, there we go. Let me bring this, put that in there and trim that off. Alright, there's our first card. It's a simple stamping. Okay. Now we're bringing the second card. It's a little bit more detailed, and then actually in this one I'm going to bring in another element that I didn't do on this. This has, I'm going to use the blueberry bushel instead of this color, but I brought in some ribbon and some sequins, and I think I'm going to actually use, instead of sequins, because these aren't Stampin' Up, I'm going to use these gems, the holiday basic rhinestones. We've got the same pieces except for a back, instead of the background piece, I'm going to just use a 1-inch strip on this side because I have the ribbon on this side and you don't see that blue there anyways. So let's start the same way. I'm going to start by stamping our butterfly. And stamping our sentiment. Okay, putting our mask on. Okay, we're going to, this time, I'm going to bring in a mask. These are also Stampin' Up. You can find them in the catalog. And I'm going to use the same ink. Add a little bit of something else to this background besides just the square. Okay. Now I'm going to add a little bit more coming off of this square so that we get the solid white image. Almost doesn't look like you have anything there. And then you're really surprised when you take off your mask how much there is. See, I think I want a little bit more over here, just the bottom corners, just so that it looks more like a square. Paper on there. Did I get it? A little bit more here. Do these top corners. Okay, I'll take that off. I'm going to tear it the same way. About ½ inch in, ½ inch in. We're going to tear towards ourselves with the right hand, or if your dominant hand is your left hand, turn it over and do it this way. Okay, and I'm going to glue this to the back of that, so I'm just going to get a little strip of glue here. I want this to be the same size as the front of my card, so I'm going to place this on here. I'm going to make sure I get a little bit of extra room. Now this piece is a little bit smaller. It's actually 1/8 of an inch smaller than the front of the card. And then I'm going to trim off that top edge. This time I'm just going to use my snips. Turn the card over, butt that edge of the scissor to it. I'm just going to trim it off. Okay. And go ahead and mount this to the front of my card. I might actually bring in some dimensionals. I think I will. I didn't on my first one, but I'm going to make it a little bit different. Alright. Go ahead and use a piece of this back. Alright, take the backing off. Center that on the front of this card. I'm also going to bring in, where did I put it? The denim ribbon. I'm going to wrap it around and tie a knot. Okay, trim it off. Okay, that looks good like that. Then, just for the fun of it, I brought in some sequins. So let's just add a couple of these little rhinestones on here, just for the fun of it. I like that. I don't want to put more than that. Okay, so there's card number 2. Here's the one I did previously. I added this extra bit. I kind of like it. Which one do you like better? Okay, now let's go to the Avid one. This is the Avid one. I added, and I'm not sure if you can see it, I added an embossed layer. So I have a layer to stamp on, and this one I actually tore that piece out and popped it up. I have the piece to emboss on and put the color on. And I have a piece which is the same size as the front of the card, 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 of the blueberry bushel. And then I have my card base, which is 5 1/2 by 8 1/2, scored and folded at 4 1/4. Okay, let's... first thing, one is a little bit narrower top to bottom than the other. So, and a little bit, it's going to end up being shorter once we tear it off. So let's run that piece through our embossing folder. I'm going to use the Scripty 3D embossing folder. Get a couple things out of the way here. Big shot in. Glue plate. Okay, so I'm just going to run this through, and I have to pay attention to which direction I want my script to go. I want it to go up, and this is the direction of my card, so I want to make sure the words are going the right direction. Make sure that's okay. Put it on my Big Shot platform with the fold of the folder going towards the center. Make sure it's on that platform and not hanging off. Put my blue plate on top and run it through. Alright, there's that piece. Now I'm also going to add some color on the front of this. I'm just going to use that same makeup brush. I'm going to start in the center because my piece will go over the top of it. I do want to make sure I'm out far enough so that it shows. Now, do I want to add some dots too? Let's try it and see. Let's see what it looks like. Ooh, that's kind of cool. Let's add a little bit darker ones up here. Okay. Now let's go ahead and tear this. Same way, about a 1/2 inch off. Maybe a little bit more than that. If it's easier, hold it down on the table. There you go. Now we're going to bring in that other piece. And I'm going to stamp my butterfly. And I'm going to stamp my sentiment. Okay, then I'm going to go ahead and tear this out. Start this direction. Trying not to smear that stamping I did. If it's easier, tear your square out first. Okay. I like that little torn edge it makes. Alright, let's bring in our pieces and do the rest of them. Over here. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and glue this piece. This piece is popped up with dimensionals. So let's go ahead and add a few dimensionals. Use up my back and my edges because it's sticking to me. I didn't cut it, so I'm just going to tear it. Do it this way. Alright, go ahead and center this. This is going to have a little bit of a border here, like an 1/8 of an inch border. Center on 3 sides and set it down. And I used up that packet dimensional. Let's grab another one. Okay, let's add some dimensionals to the back of my butterfly. I don't want to put it down yet. I want to bring in that ribbon. There was a tail that I cut off. I don't know what I did with it, so I'm just going to cut another one. I cut a piece, it's 1.5 inches, 2 inches. I'm going to fold it in half so it makes like a little flag. And on this first corner here, I want to adhere it down. So I'm going to grab another dimensional, put a dimensional there. I'm going to adhere it to the dimensional. And I'm going to grab a glue dot. And I'm going to add a glue dot. So that when I fold this over it, stays closed. Like that. Okay, now I'm going to stick this onto the front of my card. I'm going to bring in my ribbon. Probably should have done this first. I think that's where I came up with that piece. I cut it off from here. That's alright. Now we're going to tie another bow. Or tie a bow. Try and tie a bow. Not a frame. Hey, it actually came out pretty good the first time. Not bad. Alright, bring in my snips and trim this off. I'll trim this little tail that got a little bit ratty. Now this is going to get glued to the front of our card. Let's move this bow over, center it a little bit better. Perfect. Okay. Now I'm going to bring in some of those rhinestones. I'm going to add a couple rhinestones also. There we go. There's the card we just made together. Here's one I did previous. Let me close up the sink so I don't stick a card in it. And here's the beginner one. Which one do you like better? Did a lot of different techniques with it. This one I just used the brush with. This one I used the sponge. And this is the second one. The original one I just used the brush. I didn't use the stencil. And then I added a stencil in this one. This one is, I didn't use the stencil on the background, just the brush. And I didn't add rhinestones on it. And this one I added the rhinestones and the stencil. Well, let me know which one you like. Well, thank you for joining me at Jamie's Craft Table. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I hope you can find a little bit of time to play with some stamps, ink, and paper.